Chuck Yeager, a World War II fighter ace, was the first pilot to break the speed of sound in 1947. His calm, reassuring speech pattern was passed down from test pilot to test pilot, eventually becoming the mold of American aviation and military radio communication today. It also became known as the Houston Center voice, the famous air traffic controllers who emulated his reassuring confidence even in the setting of imminent disaster. During my time as an active-duty naval flight surgeon, I had the unique opportunity to deploy to the Middle East with my Marines. Flying in the darkness, I spent many nights eavesdropping on the melodic chatter over the tactical radio. Regardless of which airspace we were flying through, or which country's aircraft we were working alongside, radio communication always sounded remarkably similar, almost as if you were speaking to the same exact person. In a chaotic emergency department, ED physicians share common ground with pilots and combat air crews alike. We are leaders who face and bring authority to the worst and most difficult of circumstances. In this brief talk, I'd like to make a few quick observations that may help our communication and team dynamic in future resuscitation. Imagine a medical alert being brought into your trauma bay, your entire team standing by, ready to provide the best emergency care possible. As the paramedics begin their offload, the team begins encountering their first obstacles. Lines get tangled, an IVA blows, the cardiac monitor stops working. As each person starts troubleshooting their section, the chatter builds until the conversation becomes loud, and what happens next? A frustrated directive pierces the room. "One voice, please." And what happens next? Everyone hushes for a few moments, but things still need to be troubleshot, and the chatter builds again until the cycle repeats itself. Being told to hush when you need to work through a problem with your teammate undermines cohesiveness and bidirectional communication. In complex medical resuscitation, with a wide variety of tasking, side conversations are not only inevitable, but they're crucially necessary. Asking for one physician voice is a functionally counterproductive task. In military aviation, combat pilots face a similar challenge. Aircrew have multiple tasking and demands that they have to work through, and they have to talk to each other, as well as the pilot in command. But instead of all conversations happening on the same frequency, a tiered system of varying volumes and varying channels allow the pilot in command to distinguish which dialogue to be involved with, while also being peripherally aware of all their conversations occurring in the aircraft. Applying this concept of radio frequencies to resuscitation may be tricky. Instead of hushing and shouting for a single voice, may I suggest an alternative phrasing that may help us manage chatter rather than eliminate it. Team, if you need to troubleshoot something with your buddy, please do so at a whisper. If you need to escalate to the lead nurse or myself, please do so at full volume. The difference is subtle, but psychologically, this encourages and empowers your team to continue communicating openly along the respective lanes without fear of reprisal. Additionally, volume and tone modulation can serve as clever tools to cue if a message is meant for an individual person, a particular job, or for the room as a whole. Traditionally, there isn't explicit military training in how to vocalize over the radio. Over time, convention reinforced that air traffic controllers wanted to sound like Houston Center, and fighter pilots all tried to sound like Chuck Yeager. In the EMS and pre-hospital world, there is a classic saying, "Always sound cool over the radio." What if we developed a EM resuscitation radio voice, something that was unique and special to us as a specialty and could be passed down culturally from generation to generation? We could even consider calling it the Rob Orman or Amal Matu voice. If anyone has seen them on Essentials or the conference circuit, many of us have witnessed how effortlessly charismatic these docs are with both their guests as well as other conference attendees. Their positive and professional attitude is soothing, regardless if they're speaking with a junior resident or with Scott Weingart himself. Our EM resuscitation radio voice doesn't necessarily have to be loud, but it should instill confidence and cohesiveness, making every member of the team feel important and empowered. Cultural nuances in resuscitation can be a constantly moving target, and conceivably, standardization of both communication styles and jargon can be difficult to implement. In its simplest form, I hope all of this just serves as a gentle reminder to take a deep breath before the paramedics bring in your next major code, consider communication along varied volumes, and channel your best inner fighter pilot, Rob Orman or Amal Matu resuscitation voice. Together, we'll continue to uphold emergency medicine's highest ideals and leading our team in the fight, all while being a little bit more cognizant of our own voice over the radio. For now, this is Resus Team Alpha, departing the trauma pattern, Stay safe out there. Doc 004 Actual, out.
I just want to again say thank you for your presentation and thank you for your service. And one question I did have is, I think all of us in the room are curious how you got the name DIG, but that will have to be for after the session. And again, I think these are lessons that we can all take back with us, so thank you.
Thank you.